Welcome to a Sunday evening. Um, Tonight, I'm just going to talk about my operating system and what happened last week, which was a good thing. KDE Neon came out finally with a update. So, if you're not aware, some distros like KDE Neon or Mint or Pop OS, they're actually sitting on top of usually a stock Ubuntu for most part. In my case, KDE guys tend to keep to the LTS versions of Ubuntu. So 2004, 2204, 2404. Now, normally, when LTS is changed, and if you're not sure how Ubuntu reads it, it's the 24th year, 2402, or sorry, fourth month. And then 2410 is the 10th month. So 2024. But 2410 is not an LTS. 2404 is the LTS. Um, they usually supply a updater to update it, and they usually do it about midsummer or so, August type idea. But for some reason this year they held back. So I finally got the update in, I think it was, the first week of October or so. And it pops up on your sys tray and says you can update your OS to the new 2404.1. Maybe that's what they were waiting for, was the point 1 edition. But went to apply the update first on my virtual machine over there. No problem. It went in, did the whole update. The only thing I knew I had to come back to was deal with the repo sources, apps, /etc /app/sources.d. But I was aware of that. And I knew that KDE would just mark a whole bunch of the third-party ones as disabled. And you would have to go back in and enable. But that presented an interesting problem on this machine, that updater. When I ran it, first thing I did was to do this to make sure my machine was actually up to date. So I would run this like this. And it says one package, for example, needing update, microcode. Okay. Now, in my case, it was coming up one held package. Now, I didn't think much of it, right? Because that's not unusual to have a held package. When I installed Wine 9.x onto this box, one of the libraries, libpopular8 for x64, was incompatible. It caused a snarly mess of dependency crap. But I didn't need it, right? So I just put a hold on it so it wouldn't get updated from the one I had to put in that was more correct. So the one that was shipped in the OS didn't match. The one I went online and found the correct ones did match. So I said, okay, well, that's not a problem. So I ran the updater, and I'm sorry, I can't update your OS. You must complete all updates. So it got hung up on the held package. I fiddled a bit with it, couldn't get it to go forward. So I decided, okay, well, what I'll do is I'll remove that library effectively. And it turned out removing the library, which was installed as an alternate version, spread out like a bunch of dependencies into a huge amount of wine files that were needed, especially i386 libraries and stuff like that. So, in fact, I broke wine. Well, I figured, okay, I'll break wine and I'll put it back again when I get the update done. So that removed the hold and it was gone. And when I ran the updater, no problem. It went off, it updated, and it was 1,978 packages that got updated initially. Like, that was the first wave. Whoa boy, that was a big one. So once it was all done and it was installed, I tackled the first problem, which was the repos. So if I go into here and I say etc apt, and I go into sources, now it's actually not called sources.list.d anymore. It's actually just sources, right? You'll see in a sec. So you can see here, for example, in Daniel Richard repo, right? That was the original. It was for Jammy, it was a list, and it was an upgrade. And you're probably wondering, well, what the heck is a list versus the other ones? If we have a look at this, that's what it looked like. You've probably been used to this for years. I mean, this goes back and back and back, way, 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 way back, right? But what happens is Red Hat goes and basically puts a comment in the front of the line and says rems it out. Okay. Now what they've done in the new way of doing things in 2404, and I suspect for the future, they've done this instead. This showed up, I saw in Pop! OS for a couple of the repos. This sort of format. So a on and off switch, a type, a URL. The suites can be a number of different things. They can represent the code word for the Ubuntu, or they can represent a path or something like that. You might find here just a / for example, right? And then the main, of course, is like main, universe, that sort of thing. Those keywords that they had on the old line. Okay? Now, that's not a problem. I turned them back on and I checked, and sure enough, I started fixing them. And then I hit something like, let's see, I haven't done the Docker. Let's see, is it Git? Yeah. Maybe Git would be one that shows it off. Yeah. So in Git, it complained that the key signing was too weak. So what I had to do is I had to go to the PPA place on Ubuntu, find the Git core tree, find the Git core key signing thing, the new one, and then download it. Now I noticed that there's GPG keys and there's ASC keys. And sometimes some guy would have ASCs converted downward to GPG, and others wouldn't bother doing it. So that was an interesting thing. I ended up doing some conversions based on some tutorials on certain repos that needed to be done. Now that was one way of doing it, sign by, right? And then I came across another one. Let's do the new Microsoft one. So it used to be just VS Code was a repo all on its own. Nowadays, Microsoft has a whole tree of Git stuff. Now, I end up learning about architectures. This is where you place that line that says, specifically, we're doing AMD 64. Now, on Microsoft, you can actually specify ARM, ARM64 and ARM-H, I think. So if you were to do this repo, for example, on a Raspberry Pi, it wouldn't be AMD 64, it would be like ARM64, right? If it was the 64-bit version of Linux, or like a Raspberry Pi 4 or 5. And of course, Microsoft actually uses a GPG key instead. And now I also noticed I actually have this new subdirectory called key rings. Now, I thought at first, why are they creating those? So it used to be all your keys were put into trusted GPG. They were chained together. Nope, that became defunct. Then it became everything went into the trusted GPG.d directory as separate keys. If I look at that like this, right? Okay. Then they decided, nah, that's not good enough. Let's do instead key rings. So I think Ubuntu is still in a transition between an older method and a newer method, right? And I found out there was even one more format. You can see this, the Wine Headquarters archive.key. Okay, so after doing all that, now there was another way they were doing this too. Let's see if I can find one. I think OBS Projects might have one. Yeah, so this is another way the file can be set up. Yes, we still have our on-off switch. It's deb, it's URL, it's noble, it's main. But the sign by this time is the actual key embedded into the file. Okay, that's different, right? Now, normally when you try to open one of those GPGs, let's say with less, it's just a binary file. You actually need the public version extracted out of there like this. So once I got all these, this took a couple hours to fix everything correctly. I can at the moment get rid of all these dist upgrade, but I don't plan to just yet. There's a couple in here I haven't dealt with, like the DDEBs. The reason for these guys here, sorry about that, is if you wanted to do Thunderbird that wasn't a Snap product, or you wanted to do Firefox that wasn't a Snap product. Now you can see in here in my list, I have this and this. Well, what this is KDE's way of pointing at the Mozilla.org repos and giving us Firefox as a deb package. To be honest, I hate Snapd. The few times I used packages out of it, they just didn't work properly. And that included things like Thunderbird. So I found that if I had to do a containerized version of something like that, Flatpak was better. I had no issues running Thunderbird in a Flatpak. But what does throw things out is if you want to go to where all your files are stored, they're not in your home directory the way you think they are. It takes a bit of digging, for example, to find the Flatpak directory that has the Thunderbird package, then has the actual profile for Thunderbird, which you might want to get at to get things like bookmarks and stuff like this, right? It was annoying. So I prefer the pure deb version. I might have a frog from Quebec in my mouth. Okay. So after going through all that, right, and fixing it all, I tackled putting Wine back in. So I made sure the Wine headquarters stuff was all up and running correctly. And this time, Wine went in without a hiccup. The only thing is on Wine 9, they would have you do a particular command with apt and specify like wine-stable. But there is no wine-stable. So you have to put wine-devel in, which is okay. That's no problem. But everything went in place. Now I decided to tackle, okay, I want a newer kernel. In fact, currently on this machine, I have 6.11, and everything's working perfectly. I did have one hiccup on building it, on getting it to go in for VMware, but I'll get to that in a sec. I wanted that in. So in order to deal with kernels in here and grub controls, there are two programs. You must have noticed I did have this thing in here called grubs something in here. Where is it? Grub Customizer here. Okay, and there's another package in here called Mainline. So if we go and look at System Utilities here, there's our Grub Customizer right there. I'll just bring it up. And which one it wants? Oh, it wants one of these silly passwords. Okay. So we'll just park this aside. This is the Grub Customizer. And then we want the other one, which is the mainline kernel stuff. So there, mainline kernels. So these two tools are super tools. Like this one here, if you see the symbol Ubuntu, it's actual Ubuntu rolled out kernel. So 6.10.5, AMD 65, that's actually from Ubuntu. Okay. If there are these ones here, they're from the actual Linux kernel site build. So I was after 6.11, and actually I wanted to try either one, 6.10 or 6.11. Because I felt if I couldn't get 6.11 run, I could back up to 6.10. 6.10 in Pop! OS, I think, is the default now, or 6.9. So I thought, okay, I'd do that. And then on this side of the tool, if we go to general settings, we can pick here which kernel we're going to prefer to boot. Okay. So when I put 610 and 611 trees in, and what it does, you can see the packages that it installs right there. It goes and puts them in. And then I ran into a really hiccupy thing. I couldn't build them. In fact, this tool will build the kernels, modules needed. It will run DKMS against it. And any module you might have in the system, and I do have modules in the system that require DKMS, right? It will install them. So the NVIDIA kernel module for the video card, the Blackmagic Decklink module, that sort of thing. They have to be built, right? For every kernel that you put in. And it failed, wouldn't build. So I go and look at the logs, and it's complaining that I'm not using the right compiler. So initially, by default, in this thing, we were using GCC 12.3, I think it was. It could be 12.2.3, but something like that. And it doesn't work for kernels 10 and 11. It works for 8 and lower. So I didn't try 9, but I suspect 9 would be broken too, right? So, okay, fine. I find GCC 14 in the repo, and I installed GCC 14, but it kept reverting back to 13. And I'm going, no. So I did some reading, and I ended up using update alternatives, this guy right here. And I believe it is no, not that one. Is it list? No, it's not list. It is display. This tool is not intuitively fun to use. No, we're not doing that one. There. So these are all the stuff within alternatives that have alternatives to themselves. So we wanted GCC right here. So I actually made these two entries here for GCC and G++. It's kind of weird because you see the CC up here and the CPP. They are actually just links to GCC and G++. I had to make that. Once I did that and GCC kept coming up properly, then I went back to the mainline kernels and I put back in 610 and 611. And when I was doing it, it did its build process to build everything and the DKMS. It went through fine, perfectly. It built everything. And same with 611. It went and built everything. And when I booted up the 611 kernel, everything was working perfectly. Right? Just a bit of a headache to get to that point. Now, like a week later, I think it was actually a little more, could have been about 2 days ago, I ran that line to update myself, and I ended up with another something like 500 more updates. And part of that update was finally officially switching me over to GCC 14. I saw it in the list. So it's like they forgot to do that. Tell the OS that you're going to be on 14 now and not 13. So I would have missed this whole problem if I had just waited and did the next major sweep. And this usually happens when the OS switches over like this. You're going to get a few weeks where every few days or so you'll get a big update as they refresh and retune and catch up on things. And it doesn't make the OS any unstable or anything. It's just there things like tweaks and rebuilds and stuff like that. I suspect some of the packages that get installed are just recompiles, right? They've rerun them under the newer GCC and then reissued the package again. So that's when I completed all that, and then I went down and I did, of course, the Blackmagic Decklink driver. So I simply had to go in and just do a reinstall. And sure enough, it built the modules and everything. Everything was fine. And the video modules were built correctly. I could see that when I was doing this, right? It built them all fine. But when it came to actually doing VMware, I had one error in the log. And that was, it was missing version.h. Now, version.h usually in the kernel tree gets dynamically built at the time you do the pre-prep work on the kernel tree. So you download the kernel, and there's a make command. It's kind of like make prep, some idea like that. And what it does is it prepares the tree for your use. So it does a bunch of checks and everything to make sure you have all the tools ready and all the pieces are in place so that you can build the kernel. And part of that thing is generating that version.h file. It actually generates, I think, about 4 or 5 header files, right? They're built on the fly at that moment in time. And VMware couldn't find it. But it already exists in the system. If you look in user, include, Linux, and you look up here, VH, there's version.h. All I had to do was just copy this file to where the logs for the build process of VMware said it was missing from. As soon as I put that there and then I reran the VMware, in fact, it gave me an opportunity to update VMware at the same time. So I put the 17.6.1 VMware in, and it just worked. Everything built, the modules built. You can tell because you do an ifconfig, and there's VMnet 8.1. These guys right here. VMware builds those. Okay. And I believe this one here is my Bluetooth. And there's my Docker. And ETH0 is bridged over to the BR0. I'm still using a more classic version of the bridge system. It works. I do not fiddle with that because it doesn't really need any fiddling. But there is technically a newer way of doing this that doesn't require the BRCTL program to be installed. So once all that was done, what else did I run into? So that was the VMware problem. Oh yes, the big change. We have a new Python in here. Python, that version, I think it is. 3.12.3 is the new baseline Python in here. And by the way, 3.13 just came out, right? But one of the things, and I really disagree with Python on doing this, and I encountered this already with Visual Studio Code and PyCharm, the naggy insistence of needing a virtual environment for everything. Now, if we go back to a user directory here, like this, okay, so here we are in William's home, right? This is, in essence, a container already. So when you run pip install something over here, so let's say Control-I pip, like so, right? The user gets this package. You can see this right here. Local. Local is us. There is a local directory in here, right there. Local. Why are you arguing over making a virtual environment just to install stuff that is already not going to contaminate the OS? And that's was the whole point of the virtual environment, is you're not contaminating the primary Python install. The ones in like user lib Python 3.12 blah blah blah, that directory. No, we're never installing into that directory unless the OS updaters decide to update something in the core Python packages over there. We never install to that. So why are you nagging me to put it, right? And I was not the only person to complain about this, right? Who wanted the old style back, where this was treated as like an environment that's not going to contaminate the OS. It's kind of virtual in a sense. If I really needed a virtual environment, then I would go one level deeper and create a virtual environment for that particular project, not for the user itself, right? And it turns out there were a dirty command, right, that said bypass blah blah blah, and it's like, oh, really stupid. And then someone came out and says there's just a file in a tree that you can go to and move out of the way, and you'll get the old system back. And for that, it is here. So if we do a pwd in user lib python 312, there is a file right here, externally managed. If you move that over, which I did, you can see that, externally managed.old, you get the old behavior back. No need to over-create virtual environments for every nitpicky little thing. You don't have to do this, right? It makes the system behave like it used to be. No more running into, oh, you can't install this because you could corrupt the OS. No, you can't, because you're not installing as root. You're installing as you, in my case, willm, right? This error here. So you temp this, you get this wine, right? And then you get this wine. But we're not breaking system packages because we're not installing to that area of the OS. This is stupid, real stupid. And I hope they fix this, because the user themselves, it used to be, that was where you installed to. And we know it's going there because it's going to .local, right? Well, that's my biggest rant about this, was that this was stupid. It first showed up when I saw it in Raspberry Pi. Now that I know where this is, I am going to go into my Raspberry Pi, and I am going to find that same tree, and I'm going to find that same frickin' file, and I'm going to move it out of the way, because it's stupid. It just interferes with development, makes things more tedious and dumb to do. So that was the final piece of the puzzle. Otherwise, everything worked. All the webcams worked. Everything, plug things to the USB. It works. Visual Studio Code, no problem. Everything is working in that land also. So yeah, you can actually see I do have that open there. And let's just get rid of these before we do some damage to ourselves. Even though I have to press a couple of buttons to do damage. We just want to make sure. Now, just a sec. I need to see what Visual Studio Code is looking at. Not a good idea to be looking at that. And close folder. Now, one thing in Visual Studio Code, I've been messing with the PyCharm way of doing CircuitPy projects, where the actual control code for Visual Studio Code and all its related ilk are kept on the drive, and we just reference the CircuitPy drive, and as part of the workplace project settings. You just have to remember that if you take out a device, for example, something like this, you have to remember to plug it in first before you go and open that workplace project again. So I thought that would be a good review of this. And so far to date, I haven't found anything running wrong. Even downstairs here in the tray, this is actually formatted better now. It wasn't before. It was getting truncated and stuff. So there is definitely plasma improvements here and there. I hate to say I'm getting old, and I've had to borrow the magnifying glass a few times to read things. I might have to go into the properties of this bar, for example, and enlarge the icons a little bit. You can do that. You do this. And visibility, opacity, alignment, height. It's custom. So what they're getting at here is let's see if I get back there. There's a way they've changed the way they do this. So I want to position no height. This is, by the way, where you get rid of that stupid floating command too. There, see, I'm making the icons a little bigger by just changing the width of the panel. Position, let's see. That's not what I wanted to do. There we go. What I was after is the overall width, but that seems to be kind of okay there. Now that I've changed the icons a bit bigger. Center, fill height, style, passive visibility. Let's see. There used to be a way where you could highlight this and you can move the panel up or down and stuff like that. It looks like they've changed that. I'll have to research that a little more. See, I got all this black space down here, and I want to change. Come on, guys, let me do that. Floating, height, custom. Well, that removes the spacers out of there. Show panel configuration again, please. Thank you. Yeah, that's what I figured that would do. Position puts it on the side of the screen. Height. Nope. Content. That's better. I do wish they would let me have exit edit mode. Let's see what it looks like. That's not bad. I do wish I still had the older tool, which lets you adjust the bar thing, so you could have a short bar instead of but it should be setting there. It says free floating, in the sense that you can move the bar up and down, place it anywhere you want, even though the top white space over here is not exactly the same as the bottom white space over here, or vice versa. But that's the new Plasma, so I guess I would have to put a thing in and say, can I have that feature back? Yeah. But I hope this helps anyone who is on KDE Neon getting through some problems. I think I'll be sticking with this prompt for a while. It seems to be working pretty good. I think the only thing I have to worry about on it is sometimes in Visual Studio Code. Let me just see, new terminal. No, it's working correctly. I did have one instance where the icons were missing. So So now on some electronic stuff I have, this was my little mag badge or whatever. And it used to have the weather program, getting the weather all the time. The weather people who put this out changed the way they do things and want money now for lots of things. So it's now kind of broken. I'll have to find a different way of getting weather. So that's why it's in a black screen right now, because they finally turned off what they call API 2.5, and they're forcing everyone into API 3.0. So yeah, I do hate places where they force you to sign up, and then they force you to put credit card information on, even though you get so much free every month, right? I would prefer they just say, well, if you hit a limit, we'll just turn it off for you, and you have to come back and send you an email and say, if you want to use this more than you're using it, then you have to sign up for some subscription. But this was not happening on this site. And I hate putting stuff in that I don't need to put in. So as it stands, it's not going to work. I did have another project I was working on that finally got working. This is, I'll just take the daughter board off for a sec. This is the ESP dev board. It's the ESP thread border router / Zigbee gateway version 1.2. So what we have here, and I learned, is that we have a ESP H3, I think it is. H2. And we have an ESP S3 on this side. So this is programmed to be the coordinator, and this is programmed to be the endpoint for Zigbee connections. And then this daughter board here goes on, and it gives you access to the Ethernet network. As you notice, there's 2 sets of resets, 2 sets of boot selectors, 2 USBs. And then I can't remember what this middle one is for. I think it's for debugging purposes or putting a programmer on it. But you build it like this, and I've already programmed it. I can actually plug it in. Actually, no point, because, well, I can make the lights glow. But the thing is, at the moment, I'm trying to figure out how to use Zigbee. I have no idea. I'm not into home automation, so to speak. So, but I found out finally, to get this to work on the right programming in each one, when you're using the ESP IDF, and I'm going to just change profiles here and here. So we'll go to profiles, and we're going to pick the expressive and make it the default. This is what happens when you change like this. I'm pretty sure this is just because of if I come in settings and I bring up a new terminal, which is, whoops, where did this go? There. If I bring up a new terminal, it might be fixed right away. No. So I have to fix it within this profile. It's fixed for other profiles, but it's not fixed for this one. So even the profile settings are kept separate in different profiles. I mean, the terminal settings. Restart extensions. Yeah, okay. So what you have to do in here is you have to actually install exactly the right ESP IDF variant. So I think in this one, if I open a folder up, we don't need that anymore. Why am I getting Explorer with a blue thingy on it? Oh, interesting. Let's see what happens if I do that. No, nothing much. I have to do a setting for the font. I have to make the fonts visible in here. There's a blue hourglass on here. Open folder. Let's go get a thing. The problem with this programming environment, you have to have the project open in order to fiddle with the settings. So we want ESP IDF projects. Actually, let's create. I'll create the Zigbee project. So it looks like on this machine, ESP IDF is not in correctly anymore. Let's see if I can. Let me just start this over again. I think it's a bit borked and it needs to be fixed. Let's try it again. Yeah, so something borked it. If this happens, usually what I end up doing is LS installing. There is a directory, two directories in here. One called ESP and that one, and expressive. If you go and say rm-rf ESP and dot expressive, we can start from scratch. And then we'll bring Visual Studio Code back up. And we go like this, and we go configure the extension. Yeah, he's complaining about a requisites are missing. Let's see. I suspect this is because of all the OS updates. Oops, can't do it there. Bad thing to do. Let's do it here. Yeah, so we're missing a couple of things. Okay, so let's come back to here. And let's try this again. There we go. We'll do advanced. And it says the path is wrong. No! What the fuck was that? That was strange. Let's try this again. See, this is wrong, and this is wrong. Oh, frickin' off. It's showing up here again. I really got to figure out why this stupid dialogue is appearing on the wrong screen all the time. Ah, come on. No, don't find it on my system. So you have to install 5.1 for this one. So I'm going to just put that one in. And where's my file explorer? What the hell happened? I need to look at the folder called trash. Lucky I haven't deleted anything that was important. Okay. So Calgary's about to get snow. Yes, I know. I said the evil four-letter word, snow. So apparently snow is inbound. Don't know when. I mean, according to Weather Canada, it should be in a couple of days. We'll find out. I mean, we had an exceptionally long, warm summer, so this doesn't take that long to do. It's just tedious. Yeah. These are all the different compilers and stuff like that for doing different ESPs. And you have to take the sample code from the version ESP IDF that matches ESP IDF you install. So if you install that 5.1.4, for example, you have to use its sample code with this. You cannot use the 531 sample. I will have to reinstall 531, but you can't do it with this one. Now, the reason for two of them is if you got some of the very new C6s and stuff like that, you need the newer ESP IDF. But for some reason, the sample code for this unit doesn't work in the newer ones. I did find a few comments about it, that why it might not be working, but I didn't find any concrete solutions to fixing the problem. I suspect a regression testing should have been done on some of the demo packages to figure out if they actually still work. Then it would have been caught and fixed at ESP land. There we go. We are going to show examples, and we are going to go Zig. And we need two projects. Gateway, create a project. And I freaking hate this. And we go to ESP IDF projects and say OK. Now we need another window. New window. And we need this. And we need show examples. And stretch this out a little bit. Go find Zig. Let me see, RCP. Create project. And we do ESP IDF. Projects. Let me say OK. Now we take this board and we plug, let's see, this one just strictly power? No good. We need datas. So we need this one. And we need another data. Yep, there we go. So one for you. Oops. One for you. So just shift this up a little bit and go back to this one. So this one here, we need to use the S3. And we need to pick out of here S3. And we will just do that one. And then on this one, same thing. We need to pick H2. And then we need to pick H2. Sure, why not? Okay, if we go back to this one here, and we say build flash and monitor. Now, this is actually the wrong terminal. We need to actually open up this terminal. This is actually the ESP IDF terminal. We need to be using it. So we'll begin with this one. Boy, it builds so much faster on here than on my VM. I wonder if I should give my VM more cores. I notice sometimes I have to reset this because the monitor doesn't want to click in. Oh, that's not working, right? Well, let's build the other one and see what happens on this one. Again, this guy here, we need the proper terminal. And then we need to build everything. I wonder why this one is coming back and not going into monitor mode. Well, it works on my VM. I guess I can't show this off because I have a bug somewhere and it's not working. I wonder why the monitor is not working. Did we actually run out of letters in here? Hmm. It's not starting the monitor properly. Yeah, okay. Well, we have a problem in here. It's not running the monitor properly. Let's try this. File, close folder on this one. Close this. File, close folder on this one. Close this. Let's just restart Visual Studio Code. File, open. Go away. I don't want to do Docker. File, open folder. Integrate it all the way from up here. Come on. ESP projects. And let us open the gateway. And let's build it again. Well, that's interesting. I'll have to debug what's going on this thing because that doesn't make sense. Is it because this is not started? Maybe we start this. No, can't start that either, which is not good. Maybe we need to change this. Let us do that one, the very top one. Maybe we have it on the wrong one. There seems to be a little bit of you're trying to debug out of these ports, yet at the same time you're trying to communicate through these ports. It's like two different systems are trying to get through the port, and only one can be done at a given time. Okay, so kill the monitor, build tasks. Okay. Let's try. Actually, let's do a make clean on this. There we go. And we'll rebuild completely from scratch. All I changed is the type of port I think this is. So I took it off JTAG and I put it on the other one. I'm definitely not the third one in the list. Okay, sweet flash. Nope. Not sure what's going on. Not at all. I mean, this is what I have on the VM. Same setup. And the monitor port comes on all the time. Now, if I go like this and I say configure again, I think I got the right 5.1 version, but there's another one in the tree, I think. Advanced. No, we're not going to find show all tags and go like this. So for some reason, there's release this 5.1. There's this 5.14. So let's do release 5.1 branch like so. And on this guy, let's just close the folder. And on this guy, let's go to projects. And this one and this one. We'll just delete them. Okay. Okay. Okay, advanced. No, show all. And I said release 5.1. Configure tools. That's what I spent a lot of time on the other side getting to work. Finding exactly the right version. Although I don't know why the monitor would seem to work all the time, no matter what version I had. I don't know why over here it's not doing it. We're going to go get a new sample templates out of the thing. I wish they would clean up their branches a little bit too. It's a bit confusing. Which one is exactly 5.1? Okay. It seems when it pulls this one down, it's a little different than it pulled the other one down. the way it's done it. It's going to take a few minutes. Must be a really warm day out there. It's a little warm in here now. Oops, here. Sorry, on the wrong screen. But it was just a lot of this. I have to remember to keep checking over to the left to see which screen I'm actually on. Wow, this is a big one. There's going to be a time jump. I'm just going to pause for a sec. Sorry, I'm back. The install took longer than I expected, and I still have the problem. So I have to go back to the VM version and see what's going to different between the two, because something's not running right here, and I'm not sure what it is. I can't seem to get the debug window open, even though I have the OpenCD server running and everything, which is needed. It doesn't want to do it. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on. So I'm going to leave it at this, and I have a bunch of debugging tomorrow to do to find out what went wrong. I had hoped to demonstrate this in showing in two different debug windows the traffic going between them and stuff like this, but I guess it's not going to be tonight. So I will let you go for the moment.